won a Super Bowl with him. In fact, I was real disappointed when they let him go. I understand the situation. I mean, this is a great opportunity for them to go out and get the best player available, whether that's middle linebacker like I've been screaming, or a cornerback, old lineman, or even running back. They have everything. I mean, this is what I love. Breaking down football and tuna fishing. My two best
Your two favorite things. Let's see if we can combine those at one point. So, defensive tackle now a little bit more shored up with the addition, or I guess the re-addition of Tim Jernigan. Ray, as you look at some of what the Eagles have been able to do over the years, here are their picks they've got. They're 25th overall. They've got 2 in the second round, 2 in the fourth round, a 5th, and a 6th rounder. So, I mean, this is a real opportunity to infuse some new talent here.
Sure, and it's also the opportunity to make a terrible mistake. If I mean, that's
someone had to say it.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, we've seen it work both ways here. I mean, you can. The thing about being in a draft is you have to be very nimble. You have to react to what's happening, especially when you are where the Eagles are, which is picking 25. A lot of your destiny is going to be decided by the teams above you. What happens above you? The Eagles could get very lucky tonight in the sense that, look, I think we all agree that their needs really right now are at the line of scrimmage, both offensive and defensive lines. And this is a team that likes to build at the line of scrimmage. And there are a lot of really good players there. Now, if this is a draft where all of a sudden the teams above you, everybody starts getting quarterback crazy, and you have 4 quarterbacks that could go in the top 15.
I can see that happening.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's way overvalued. I mean, I don't think they're all first-round players, but they're quarterbacks, so they're likely to go. So if you wind up with 4 of those quarterbacks go in the top 16, the 2 Iowa tight ends go above you. All of these are positions the Eagles aren't going to be looking to draft.
Right.
But each time somebody like that goes off the board, it pushes another good lineman further down the ladder. So you may wind up, if you're the Eagles, you're hoping that a really good one falls in your lap.
They have a really good track record when it comes to drafting in the trenches. So let's take a look at some of the things that Howie Roseman and company could be looking at as far as players and positions. So you see here, Barrett, a couple of guys. Who do you think moves the needle for you? Any of these guys?
Yeah, I like Cleveland Farrell. I think he's more of a complete guy, in which you'll have down there in that area, speed, explosiveness. Comes off the corner and can play inside. Played a little bit inside when he was in college, but he's outside guy, has NFL pass rushing moves. He's got that will to go out there and get it. And he's very skilled at that. So he's a guy that I really, really like going into. Even going into this season this year in the college level and now in the NFL draft.
On that board, Ray, we saw 3 guys all from Clemson. I think anybody that won the national championship last year is probably pretty good. They had an excellent defense in that one. Jeffrey Simmons is a guy who may need to miss all of 2019. What do you think about a guy like him?
Yeah, well, that's when the Eagles made the decision to sign Jernigan today, that was what crossed my mind. Jeffrey Simmons is a defensive tackle from Mississippi State.
Yes.
He's drawn some comparisons to Fletcher Cox. I think that's a little premature. I don't think he's nearly as good as Fletcher was coming out of college, but he is a good player. He played a lot on the nose, but I think he more is a 3 technique kind of player here. But he tore his ACL in February as he was preparing for the combines and his pro workouts. So right now, we don't know what his physical status is. I mean, he could very well be, if you're drafting him, you could be drafting him as a redshirt. He might not play at all this year, which made me think, okay, the Eagles are signing Tim Jernigan for 1 year. Maybe they're getting Tim Jernigan with the idea that he will buy them the time until Simmons is healthy and ready to play. If that's the case, if that's what they're thinking, I would disagree with that. Look, 2 years ago they drafted Sidney Jones, who was an injured player, and they drafted him in the 2nd round, and they redshirted him.
Well, here we are, redshirt. They're going to let him sit out this entire year.
Right, exactly.
You're willing the next year. Yeah.
Right. You draft this guy, and you're willing to write off that first year to allow him to get better. Okay. I wasn't crazy about doing it in the 2nd round. I really don't like doing it in the 1st round.
Right.
And here we are. Now we're coming into year 3. We still don't know what Sidney Jones is, really, when you get right down to it. So, to me, there's real risk involved with Simmons. He was a good player before he got hurt, but if he's going to miss this whole year, look, this team is in position right now to get back on top of this division and win this division and go to the playoffs. You need to go get players. I'm not worried about red shirts. I want guys that can get on the field this year.
There's some off-the-field issues also that to deal with, yeah.
Let's go to where the Eagles brass are going to be hunkered down. That is at the NovaCare Complex over the next 3 days. Wheeling, dealing, making picks, and that is where we find our Derrick Gunn. So Gunner, Howie Roseman is back in charge, hoping to hit a couple more home runs. We've seen him do that in the past.
Yes, we have, Amy. You know, it's been that proverbial roller coaster ride for Howie since he took over as GM of this team in 2010. It started by moving up to take the likes of a Brandon Graham, but that worked out pretty well. That was followed by the Danny Watkins fiasco. Then he bounces back up and he gets a perennial Pro Bowler in Fletcher Cox. And of course, after that, well, it was the Marcus Smith incident. But the last couple of drafts he's had have been pretty doggone good. He gets Derrick Barnett and his franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz. But as Howie told us, no matter how much you think you know, you always don't know exactly what you think you know.
We got to learn lessons from our past, and me in particular, I've been humbled by some of the mistakes that I've made in terms of valuing certain positions over what's the best particular player, and it stares you right in the face when you go back and look at those drafts and you go, hey, we really like this player, different position, but we went into the draft saying we have to get X, and that's why we try to take care of as many needs as we possibly can during free agency and go into the draft and just say, we don't know what we're going to need a year from now, 2 years from now, and these players are long-term players for our team.
And of course, that leads us to tonight's draft. Now, Howie told us last week, he said, you know what, right now my team is built to compete now, which basically tells you they don't need a whole lot. So that 25th pick overall is quite intriguing. Will they try to move up and get maybe that one significant piece they need to just finalize the puzzle? Could they possibly move out of the first round and end up with 3 second-round picks? It all depends on what they specifically feel that they need for this team right now. But it is a luxury position to be in when you feel that you already have close to a complete team. Not many teams in the National Football League can say that. In a few moments from now, the head coach himself, Doug Peterson, will join me to talk about tonight's draft. So I'll send it back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Derrick. We will check back in with you when Doug Peterson joins you as you check in. All right, thanks so much. Oh, there he goes. Let's take a look at the Eagles' recent history in the first round. Some home runs, as you heard Derrick mention there. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson, Carson Wentz, of course. 2 key starters who've become stars, Nelson Aguilar, Derrick Barnett. That was just a couple of years ago when the draft was here. And then, well, Derrick mentioned the other guys in Marcus Smith and Danny Watkins.
I mean, look at that, man. That list right there.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
And it took a lot of those guys a little to come around also.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of draft for the long term. So let's head to this year's site of the draft. That would be Nashville, or as the locals call it, Nash Vegas. We check in with our own cowboy, John Clark. John, it's not the same atmosphere as it was at the Art Museum 2 years ago. They're going to have a hard time ever topping that, but I know it's been a pretty good scene down there in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, if you love music, live music and country music, it is a great scene, and there is definitely not going to be anywhere near the amount of people there was on the Parkway in Philly. And it's interesting because Howie Roseman wanted to get an extra second-round pick in this year's draft, which he was able to do because he saw the depth that was coming. And you hear analysts talk about this defensive line class that's coming out especially could be the best one in years. And Howie Roseman has made 7 first-round picks. Other than Carson Wentz, it's all defensive linemen and offensive linemen. And I got to catch up with the Eagles' new preseason analyst, Ross Tucker, and we were talking about what he thinks Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas will do, and also the chance of possibly trading back again. Remember last year, they didn't have a first-round pick.
I don't think back-to-back years they would do that, but you never know. I mean, they're very analytical about it, right? So if they get to 25 and they see 4 or 5 guys they still won, they might trade down 28, might trade down 29, maybe even to the second round. That's absolutely a possibility, and it makes perfect sense if you have several guys graded equally and you're happy with any of them.
Yeah, and I know Howie Roseman would like to get back that third-round pick that he traded away for Golden Tate. And, hey, look, these things are hard to predict, but in my opinion, because of how deep the defensive line class is, I think they're going to go defensive line with their pick at 25 or trade down and go defensive line. And Ross also thinks you can get running back, get safety on the second day, which is kind of the way the Eagles have done things in the past. I'm John Clark. We are on the red carpet here in Nashville or Smashville. Send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Johnny C. We appreciate always your insight. All right, now there's a chance the Eagles go with a playmaker, possibly at 25, the most likely candidates. Oklahoma wideout Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's a Deshaun Jackson clone who did not run at the Combine, but speed clearly his game. He was a first-team All-American last season for the Sooners. There's also projected top running back in the draft, Alabama's Josh Jacobs. Didn't carry a heavy workload for the Tide, but is compared often to Alvin Kamara, also out of the SEC. Barrett and Ray, let's break down these two options for the Birds.
Well, Ray, this is supposed to be one of the best drafts as far as defensive linemen and being a defensive draft. But I really think there's a chance that there might be some offensive guys that might be drafted this year, too. And at this point, there's a lot of rumors with Nelson Aguilar being a guy that might be on a trading block. And I think this guy, Marquise Brown, may be one of the reasons why. Has speed for days. Is the reason why they call him Hollywood. And when I broke down the tape, you could see exactly what they're talking about. He has speed to burn. And this is just a simple 9 route. And as he takes off, he leaves guys flat-footed and goes for a touchdown. This is just speed, understanding, tracking the ball, getting the ball to him. But also, you have to respect the speed on the outside. So guys are going to back off. They have to back off. So what do? They turn. He turns his hips, and he just runs a simple comeback. Now, this is like taking candy from a baby. This is just way too easy. Coming back, getting the ball, getting the first down, that's just him showing athletic talent and getting people off. But also, in space, get the ball early, but then here's speed for days. He just outruns everybody. If you look at it, they track his speed right here. 15, 20, 21. You know what? In a school zone, he'll get a ticket. That's how fast he is. In a residential, in the school zone, he's going to get a ticket. But, hey, they could also go running back. And you like a guy to run back at this point, too, right?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of talk about the fact that they don't think this is a particularly great draft for running backs. But I'll tell you, I think it's better than people say. And especially at the top, where you got Josh Jacobs here from Alabama. You take a look at this. To me, this is just old school running back football here. Just takes it, splits it up the middle, and even though he's only got 4.55 speed, which people say is average, he plays much quicker than that. Look at this. Watch how he digs his foot in the ground here, sees the hole, cuts back against his Tennessee defense, takes it inside, and turns what should have been just a small gain into a much bigger gain. But the other part of it is, even though they didn't throw the ball to the backs a whole lot at Alabama, when they did, they could turn into big plays here. Now here's a swing out of the backfield where he splits the safeties, and watch how he adjusts to that ball. Now that ball came over the other shoulder.
Right.
That ball was supposed to be here. Instead it came over the other shoulder, but he tracked it all the way and made the catch. Now he only had 20 catches this whole season, which isn't a ton, but he averaged 13 yards per catch. And I think that he's the kind of guy that if he gets into a pro system where the back has to catch the ball, he's going to have the hands to do it.
Wow.
We're back here on Draft Central. The 25th pick hasn't yielded much in terms of star power over the past 10 years. Xavier Rhodes has become an all-pro corner, though, for the Vikings. Dante Hightower, 3-time Super Bowl champion for the Patriots. Of course, you have Tim Tebow, currently playing minor league baseball. The Eagles hoping to find a star, though, with that 25th overall pick, and add him to Doug Peterson's already talented roster this year. Right now, we're going to send it over to Derrick Gunn, who's joined by the head coach. Guys?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amy. And this team is so deep in so many positions. And, of course, they added depth. Earlier today, they bring back a guy we're familiar with in Tim Jernigan. What was the reasoning behind bringing Jernigan back?
You know, one of the things we focus on in the offseason is who the free agents are, who the guys that we want back on our current roster. And Timmy's one of the guys. He helped us win a world championship 2 years ago, and he gives us a lot of depth at the position, and I was really excited to get him back.
All right, Howie said that this team right now is built to compete now. Not many teams in the National Football League can go into an offseason with that kind of luxury. How does that alter the mindset going into the draft tonight?
Well, listen, you have to go in thinking that you're not built ready to play. You got to go in adding depth. You got to go in and add the competition. You've heard me say from day one since I've been here, we're going to add depth and competition where we can at most spots, and that's what we have to do in focusing on this draft and just be smart and do the right thing and again add that value to our football team.
So, but it has to be a nice luxury to go in not needing a certain player and more so adding quality depth at a position.
Yeah, and that's the thing with any draft. I think you don't go looking for need. I think you have to draft best available and the player that can come in and help us right away, and it doesn't matter what position. And then that's the thing that we look at, and honestly, I mean, this is it's a great opportunity for the Philadelphia Eagles to really add that depth that we're talking about, and each year you want to be in a position where you're sort of reloading and not rebuilding. You don't like to use the term rebuild, because if you're doing that, then I'm probably not here.
Jeffrey Lurie has said, it's never a bad thing to groom young quarterbacks, to develop a young quarterback. Carson had admitted to us that the back of the knee are not 100% yet. I'm assuming you're going to hold him back a little bit when you get around to the OTAs. Will you look at bringing in another arm through the draft?
There's something I've done my whole career as a coach is we've always looked at quarterbacks, and it's no different than really any other position on the roster. And so for us, we've looked at this quarterback draft, and you want to make sure, again, it's the right fit. It's the right guy. You just don't want to, shoot in the dark. But again, we're gonna do our due diligence, and we have. I've really leaned on Press Taylor this year. He studied the quarterbacks, and Mike Groh and myself, and it's a good group, and we'll see what happens the next few days.
Now that you've been a part of several drafts here, how involved are you with the overall draft board itself, or do you hone in on specific positions when it comes to that?
Well, I have quite a bit of involvement. I think that's one of the things that Howie and myself, Joe Douglas, it's as you've heard us say, it's a collaborative effort. We talk a lot, and now listen, Howie and Joe Douglas and the scouts do a tremendous amount of legwork, work, and I got to give them a lot of credit for the things that they do and the information that they bring us. But myself, my coaching staff, we're a big part of this process, and our opinion does matter, and we get a chance to coach these guys. So it's very collaborative. We're excited about the process. I'm excited about my involvement and how we can shape our board each and every year.
Well, whether you stay at 25, move up, or move out of the first round, good luck tonight, and of course throughout the weekend, Coach.
I appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to this draft.
All right, guys, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Derrick and Coach Peterson. The Eagles have an offensive line in place that can certainly protect Carson Wentz, but Jason Peters is 37, and Jason Kelce has recently talked about retirement. He's not doing it this year, but it's definitely come up. So let's take a look at some potential options along the O-line at that 25th spot. Andre Dillard might require a trade. Same can be said for Cody Ford. Chris Lindstrom played guard at Boston College.
Really good.
Really good. Dalton Reisner, that's from
Kansas State, baby.
Yep, there you go. Give us a little Wildcat love there.
Yes.
Ray, who do you like among these guys?
I think they're all really good players. Dillard is a real polished pass protector. I like Lindstrom as a tough, nasty guy, and Reisner has really come on. But Cody Ford is the one I think that most people have focused on and most people have talked about. It's not a great deep draft for guards, but I think he's probably the guy that has the most flexibility. You see him there just straight up run blocking, doing a fine job there. But the thing I really like is for a 330-pound man, he can move it. Now this is going to look exactly like the old Washington Redskins counter tray.
Yep.
You see him coming across, sealing up the backside, opening the lane for the running back to get in the end zone. And then, of course, in the NFL, it's all about pass protection. And you can see him just stymie the pass rush and allow the quarterback to go down there and win the Heisman Trophy. So I think that everything you're looking for, this guy really offers it to you. The only problem is, would he look good in an Eagles uniform? You bet he would. The problem is, he's not even going to get anywhere close to the 20s.
We won't see him at all, no.
Yeah, it's important to note that he was protecting Kyler Murray in all of those highlights, which is pretty cool to see. All right, Nasir Adderley played down the road at Delaware. Could he be the Eagles pick at 25? We're going to make some predictions as we wrap up Draft Central coming up on the other side. This is like the fast.
My father made me a fan. He instilled with me that passion, that fiery attitude, and that saying, you know what, let's go out there and give everything we got, and whether you're a fan or you're a player, everything you got every day.
Let's take a look at a couple of local guys who might interest the Eagles in the defensive backfield. Temple corner Rock Ya-Sin and Delaware safety Nasir Adderley, both projected to go late round 1 or early round 2, could potentially be in play for the Birds' 25th pick. Which of those might you see in the Eagles uniform, guys?
I think Ya-Sin is definitely a guy that, is going to be a guy that's going to go out and really make a difference. He goes mid to high. I really think he's right around that 15 to even 18 range as far as being a draft pick. So he'll be a guy. Rocky Sin is a guy that I think he'll be the guy that they'll go ahead and pick if they're going to pick, especially a team like the Steelers, maybe even Baltimore.
Ray, it's prediction time, and I know we have no idea. They could trade it. They could draft a guy that we've never even heard of. Probably not you, because you have 85,000 notes there. But if you had to look into your crystal ball, who would you predict at 25?
there's a little bit of wishful thinking here. I'm going to try and hope that the board sort of falls the way I would like it to fall. But I think that the Eagles have, I would love any of the Clemson linemen. I'll say Clelin Ferrell. I just think that as an edge rusher, I think he's a guy that could come in and play a lot, and play on a great championship level defense for a period of time. Back-to-back All-Americans. Clemson hasn't had one of those in 30 years. I think this guy's going to be a good pro, and I'd love to see him in Philadelphia.
Not even Brian Dawkins at Clemson. Really? Interesting. Now back-to-back All-American. All right. Who would you go with at 25B?
I want to go with Devin Bush. I've been screaming Devin Bush from the beginning of the time. I want an impact linebacker, guy to come in and play right now. That impact linebacker can turn this defense around. I tell you what, he can go out there and really impose his will, even though he's a little shorter, but he has that nasty disposition. He hates everybody in the opposing jersey. I would love to have this kid here.
Linebacker, this might require a trade-up. You think he'll be there, and any chance they go linebacker, Ray?
They haven't done it since Jerry Robinson in 1979, so I would say the odds are against it. But he's a really good player. I think he's one of these guys that's going to drop a little bit more in the draft than he should, given his physical ability. And listen, the Eagles could use another linebacker.
Yeah.
That's one position. We've talked about how they have a really set roster. Not really. They're a little short at linebacker. He would be a very nice fit.
I feel like that's a common refrain each year, a little bit of more depth they need at linebackers. We'll have to see if maybe Devin Bush is the pick there. But we want to wrap up here. Draft Central, thanks so much for joining us. It is brought to you by Nissan. For Ray and Barrett, I am Amy Fadool. Enjoy the draft. We'll have coverage all night on our My Teams app and online, NBC Sports Philadelphia. I know, Barrett, you'll be breaking down each pick along with Ray when it comes. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next, it is Phillies pregame live with Michael Barkan and Ricky Patalico. Enjoy the draft, everyone.